All right. I have watched every UFC event, fucking ever at this point, every single fight, but I've been watching every event for 20 years, having not missed one single event or available fight. I'm not sure if this is the first event since Bisping versus Rockhold 1 in November of 2014 to have all finishes. There might be one recently, because I feel like I brought it up recently, maybe like a month ago, 2 months ago. I don't know. And I could have looked this up before starting this video, but whatever. Here we are, and I look like a jerk off, as I do on every video. But this was an amazing event. 10 fights, 10 finishes, 100% shutout. Again, it's possible that hasn't happened since Bisping Rockhold 1, which was 11 for 11. But this still, it was a pleasant surprise. We got to see 7 TKO KOs and 3 submissions. It was an awesome fucking event from beginning to end, even if people that you hated won their fights. You know, like Juliana Miller. But whatever. Anyway, I'm going to start at the top, talk about each fight and what we saw. Because, again, in at least one way, this was a historic one. All right. Santos versus Hill. This was a very interesting fight. I thought Hill looked great, but Santos, I was really impressed with him in the middle of the fight when he started using his wrestling effectively. Especially, you know, being outpointed on the feet. He did seem gun shy and whatever. His, plan of chopping down the legs and counter-striking with low kicks wasn't really working in his favor. I know it's something that maybe, you know, it takes time to employ those tactics and have them reap some benefits. But this was the Jamal Hill show until Santos started using his wrestling. And then it's not like he was using it so effectively. Hill was, you know, he sprung up to his feet almost instantly most times. But there were some times where he was given trouble and he was really just being forced to work and forced to think. And I thought we were seeing a classic, you know, veteran performance. Not that Santos has no grappling skills or wrestling skills. He's got both, but he's never really used them. Tactically, it seemed like a big surprise, and I was impressed with it. But in the end, it may not have been worth it. I don't know. When he started grappling, I started thinking this could work for him or against him, where he starts sucking the life out of Hill or he's sucking his own life out of himself. A lot of sucking here because he's not used to expending energy in that way. He's not able to control himself because a lot of it did seem forced. He was really expending a lot of energy, but I wasn't sure how it was going to play out. And again, it may have cost him because Jamal Hill put him away. Round 4, he was hurt. Santos was hurt, and he just couldn't recover. And just when I thought the fight might have been trending the other way, Hill finally put him away. And Jamal Hill, he's awesome. He's got some of the best hands, maybe the best hands in the division. He's gonna have probably gonna have a distinct advantage in most fights with his hands fighting at range like that. And look, to put Thiago Santos away, it is impressive. It's been done before, I know, but it was impressive here. You know, this was no fluke. Not that his loss to David Branch or whatever was a fluke, but this was a guy with better hands, fighting through a fair bit of adversity and, again, some different tactics and making adjustments and then taking over the fight in the championship rounds. So, great win for Jamal Hill. Who the fuck did he call out? I don't know. I think he wants a title shot or whatever. Maybe he called out Yuri Prochazka. But either way, tough loss for Thiago Santos. He did look overall outclassed in there. Again, he was starting to make some things work for him, but not his best night, and this is a tough loss. Thiago Santos is a guy who, at least the light heavyweight version of him of last few years, has been able to slow fights down and not really have them degrade into a war. And that's after his Jimmy Manoa fight, but this was not one of them. He was forced into a firefight, and Jamal Hill got the better of him. So, Good main event, though. Nothing cooler than a fourth, fifth round finish in championship fights, or, main event fights with championship rounds, which we should probably just call them main event rounds at this point, but whatever. The stupidity continues. Next up, Jeff Neal takes out Vicente Luque. This was a surprise for me. I thought Jeff Neal, he was fighting well. He was hurting Vicente Luque more than I thought he would. I thought he would be piecing Luque up or generally getting the better of him. But I did think the person to get hurt would be Jeff Neal. And, it didn't even really happen once, because up until the last second of the fight, all Luque needs is one opportunity. And he can put you away with anything. A knockout or a submission. And instead it was Jeff Neal beating Luque up. And Luque is tough as all hell. He's never been knocked out until last night. And this was, a potentially pivotal loss in his career. He's taken beatings before and won a lot of wars inside the UFC against Barberena and Mike Perry and whoever else. But this was the first time where he got the other guy got the better of him in the war. And Jeff Neal, right away from the beginning, I feel like he landed in the first round 10 straight lefts, and maybe 4 of them or 5 of them staggered, if not dropped, Luque. It was insane. And every one of them landed. If he threw 10, he landed 10. And it looked really good for Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal, he was finding a distinct advantage fighting at range like that. He was the quicker guy. And I'm not sure about their reach. I knew this shit a few days ago, but I think Jeff Neal's got a reach advantage on him. Certainly seemed like it. But he was piecing up Vicente Luque. Vicente Luque was hurt. He kept his composure, found his way back into the fight. I thought he won round 2. He was just relentless in round 2. I'm not sure if he even hurt Jeff Neal, rocked him or anything, but it was just a relentless pace. Jeff Neal, I think, landed the harder shots in round 2, but Vicente Luque was up in his face and relentless, and he won that round with action and volume. And then round 3 was just uppercuts and uppercuts, and he finally, his body gave in. He fell face planted, fell face first. And that was the biggest win of Jeff Neal's career, especially to get the win in round 3, which is, coming into the fight, I said it multiple times, that's Luque's round. Luque will win round, or, if he gets a finish, I think it'll be in round 3. And instead, it went Jeff Neal's way, which really sucks because I had Jeff Neal winning via decision. So Luque's toughness failed me, and now he owes me an apology. All right. But great fight, nonetheless. That was a very entertaining fight. I love a last round finish. And Jeff Neal this is, definitely a pivotal loss for Luque, but it's a pivotal win for Jeff Neal. His hands put away Vicente Luque, who's the top killer in the division. And Jeff Neal only moves up from here. Luque, I don't know. He's got to get his shit together, but it's a tough loss for him. And I'm a fan of the guy, so it sucks. All right. Next up, Muhammad Usman takes out Zach Pauga. Gatorade sent me the fruit punch for this episode. All right. Muhammad Usman got the second round knockout. It was with a counter hook. One of those jabby hooks, but he it was a hook. And landed flush perfectly. Zach Pauga was, I think, out cold before he hit the mat, but maybe not. That second follow-up shot, that first follow-up shot put him out cold, I think. But a great win for Muhammad Usman. Muhammad Usman's a guy who, just by looking at him, he's got the power to do that. Just by looking at him. But he's a guy where I thought maybe his body, his musculature, whatever, holds him back, makes him kind of a little too rigid and stiff. But, he showed really tight technique in that fight. I did think he was outpointed on volume alone in round 1. but he was still in there, still throwing some, he threw the harder shots distinctly, I thought. And just bam, one of his perhaps weaker connects of the fight, just overall power-wise, landed flush on the chin. And it was a counter hook, left hook, like a check hook, and he knocked him unconscious, again with the follow-up shot. Great way to win the Ultimate Fighter Championship. He becomes the first brother, or whatever the fuck. They made history in one way or another. Really cool to see Kamaru there, and then praising their parents and all that. And Muhammad, man, I'm not high on him. I wasn't going to be high on anybody who won this fight. Just seems like there's a lot of downside, to be honest. But what better way to enter the UFC? And when I say I'm not high on them, I don't mean like, whatever. I don't like them. I just mean as whatever. We all want the guys entering the UFC, especially with an emphatic knockout or submission and an entrance like that. We want them to have the highest ceiling, where you never know. They could be the champion. And I just don't see that, to be honest. But nonetheless, great welcome addition to the UFC, especially the heavyweights. And gotta wait to see where they go from here. Zach Pauga, not not the easiest loss to digest, I'm sure, especially at heavyweight. You don't want to find out that you have a potentially weaker chin than you thought you did. And it's a shitty way to find that out. So we'll see. And maybe he doesn't have a weak chin. Maybe this was the anomaly in all the fights throughout his career. But for a young guy, that just seems, especially old football player and whatever, that could be his Brendan Schaub moment, against Roy Nelson. Where, whatever, not that it's going to stop him from winning. Schaub still had a successful MMA career, but every loss was when his lights were shut out. So, whatever. We'll see. But great win for Muhammad Usman. Juliana Miller takes out Brogan Walker. All right. She's good. She's good. I picked Brogan Walker to win. And I wasn't so sure it would happen, but I am so sure still that when Juliana Miller does lose, this is something I said in the pre-fight, I think it will be in that Carlos Condit, Nogueira, Nick Diaz kind of way, where she's losing decisions and giving up top position. Brogan Walker lost the wrestling battle here. Juliana Miller may just have much better wrestling than I expected her to, but she really bullied Brogan in the clinch. And she had too much for her, strength and leverage and technique as well. And she got into the mount at least once from the takedown and crawled her way into the mount in the final finish there, the flurry. And she looked really good. She's like a really sound fighter on the ground. Brogan Walker has been in there with some really good fighters, beaten some really good fighters, and no one's been able to do that to her. So for a very inexperienced fighter like Juliana Miller, that was a gigantic victory. Having said that, I hate her. I still hate her. I stand by my hatred. And, I hope she gets her ass kicked. But anyway, she is a welcome addition to the UFC. I do look forward to watching her fight. Brogan Walker, too. I think she'll be around. She's, already made a name for herself on the regional circuit and whatever. But, Juliana Miller definitely has the highest ceiling of, all those contestants on TUF, and it was cool to see her get a big victory like that, despite the hatred, whatever. All right. Sergey Spivak takes out Augusto Sakai. This went about how I thought it was going to go. Sakai had a chance if he was able to stop the wrestling, and he wasn't able to. Spivak's a much better, much craftier wrestler than I don't even want to say than he looks. But overall, as an MMA package, when you watched him lose to Marcin Tybura especially, but also having his legs shut out to Walt Harris and Tom Aspinall in round one, it's just, I've underrated him. I remember thinking it's 50-50 when he fought Greg Hardy. And that was just a few months ago. And now I'm excited to see him fight a lot of the top guys, even top 5, but certainly in the top 10. Spivak is a legitimate wrestler. He's got a great top game. which I did think would expose Augusto Sakai's weaknesses pretty quickly, and he did. You know, yeah, from here he's gonna have to. I want to see him. To be honest, I want to see him win a fight where he can't out wrestle his opponent. That's what I want to see. I was anxious to see it too in this last fight here against Sakai. I thought if he's not able to out wrestle Sakai, of course I sprinkled something on Sakai winning via first round knockout because it seemed like the most likely path to victory for him. But I wanted to see what it would be like if they had a tooth and nail battle for a decision, and it didn't go that way. But still, I'm anxious to see Spivak tested. He's late 20s. He's still young, especially for a heavyweight. He's like a baby, but. You can't ask for more against a guy like Augusto Sakai. I'm not sure what his ranking was here, but at one point he was definitely top 10 and maybe even approaching top 5. He was doing well. And this pretty much ends his moment in the UFC. I don't know if he's going to be kicked out or whatever, cut, but his moment has passed. And it's Spivak's moment now. So great win for Spivak. I'm getting a little too poetic here. The moments. Next up, Ariane Lipsky versus Priscilla Cachoeira. We will see them fight in 6 days. Can't wait for that. At least we get to see Lipsky weigh in twice, right? All right. Next up, Michael Oleksiejczuk takes out Sam Alvey. All right. I felt bad for Sam here. He got his ass kicked. He got his ass kicked in front of his kids and his wife and whoever. His grandma came back from the dead just to watch him get his ass kicked. And it was tough to see. Oleksiejczuk, he's a guy who, finally comes down from light heavyweight. This guy started fighting at light heavyweight however many years back. And everybody took one look at him and said, I think he could make lightweight. Like he's just... whatever, he doesn't belong there, but perhaps he belongs at middleweight, and absolutely, he looked great here. I knew he was going to look like the quicker fighter, despite the come down in weight, just fighting slow, plodding Sam Alvey, and he did. But Alvey still has that spider web aspect to his game, that check right hook, and he sucks you in and hurts you, and he's capable of hurting anybody, but he never got off. This was just one ass kicking after another. He took like 3 ass kickings in 3 minutes, and I'm pretty sure that's it for Sam Alvey. Pretty sure. As for Michael Oleksiejczuk, welcome to middleweight, he's a guy who... some of those fights at light heavyweight were close, or even the ones where he was smoked against OSP. I'm not saying he's going to be indomitable, but he's going to be tougher to wrangle at this weight. And I hope his strength and muscle carries him through a lot of those tougher fights that he's going to be facing, especially after bypassing Sam Alvey like this. So welcome to the division, Oleksiejczuk, finally. And ciao, Sam. I like Sam Alvey. All right. Terrence McKinney takes out Eric Gonzalez. This was about how I expected it to go. McKinney is just a first-round storm. You got to weather that storm, and if you have any deficiency in your MMA game defensively, he's gonna finish you in round 1. He's got, if you have a weak chin, McKinney via knockout round 1, and if you have a weak ground game, McKinney via submission round 1. And if you're sound defensively in both areas, McKinney probably loses via round 2. But, whatever. He's still a young fighter, tightening up his game. I would like to see him be able to use his wrestling for 15 minutes. Not that I want to reduce this guy to Mark Giacchese right away. But I do think, moving forward, he's going to need to be able to fight longer fights and to carry just some sort of strength into round 3. Whether it's wrestling, striking, grappling, whatever. He's going to need something that he can rely on in round 3. That he can fight 15 minutes hard doing one thing. Because I think he's got the athleticism to impose just about any tactic he wants. So, great win for Terrence McKinney. first round submission. I did think submission was maybe a little more likely than knockout, I think. I don't know. You can hold me to my words if you go watch the pre-fight video, but whatever. I knew it was a possibility because McKinney is so deadly on his feet. I think his knockouts are always going to be early, and they're going to be more emphatic and memorable, but his grappling is there too, specifically his submission game. That's a guy who's going to run through a lot of fighters, both ways in round one. And Gonzalez, tough outing. He fought Jim Miller. Now he fought Terrence McKinney. I'd say keep him around, but I don't think he's long for the UFC. But maybe he's earned a shot just with tough matchmaking. All right, Brian Battle takes out Takashi Sato. This I did not expect. I mean, I hit it. The bet, under 2.5 rounds was my bet. But I thought if Brian Battle won, it'd be a rear naked choke. If Takashi Sato won, it'd be a counter right hand. And instead, head kick knockout. Brian Battle within like a minute. This was one of those examples of a guy with perhaps underrated striking fighting a guy with perhaps overrated striking. I don't doubt his power. Takashi Sato's got power for days, but still, he's a guy that's, he's never looked like the like Israel Adesanya on his feet. And he was knocked out dead here. This is a guy, I think he's 35, Sato, or something, but he's, in the middle of turning that corner age-wise, especially for a lighter fighter, and or whatever he is. And Brian Battle, he's a guy who was bigger, made the cut down from 185, and he's young, 27 years old, coming into his own athletically. He's got that style where I think that'll always be there for him, the grinding, late rear naked choke style. But on his feet, he's a formidable athlete, and despite his sloppiness and whatever, he's got his shit that works for him. And it worked for him here inside of a minute. So, great win for Brian Battle. That victory over Tresean Gore already hasn't aged well at all. But, a win like this over Takashi Sato, I don't think there's going to be much aging going on here. I think Sato's pretty much done, or he's going to be done soon enough with MMA. His stock is where it's going to be. And still, to get a round one knockout, inside of a minute like that, and a clean knockout, regardless of how the win ages, the highlight will age like fine wine. So, great win for the Ultimate Fighter winner. And tough loss for Sato. Next up, Josh Quinlan versus Jason Witt. We'll see you in another 6 days. And again, I can't wait to see that finish. That's pretty much the same type of fight as Sato versus Battle that I have in my head, which is Quinlan wins via first round KO, or Jason Witt wins via second or third round submission. So you know what that means. Witt via knockout head kick in round one. Wait for it. All right. Corey McKenna takes out Miranda Granger. This was a really cool fight. We saw a Von Flue choke, or the Von Prue, or the Saint Flu. But it was really cool seeing the first Von Flue choke inside WMMA in the UFC. Or maybe even WMMA altogether. I doubt that, but I can't think of any Von Flue chokes. Great win for Corey McKenna. She said she learned it from Darren Elkins. Not that she learned it, but she trained it, and Elkins helped her out with that choke. She's over there, Team Alpha Male, or Alpha MMA, I think they're called now. Everything's got to be whatever the fuck. I'm not going to get started. But Corey McKenna with a great Von Flue choke over Miranda Granger. I thought Corey McKenna would be the much sharper, sounder fighter, technically, and she was. But I didn't expect her to take out Miranda Granger. I thought she would be relegated just with her physical disadvantages to winning a decision, to outpointing Granger, which she was comfortably doing. Great takedowns and everything. Corey McKenna just looked like the much better fighter. It was clear in round one. But she took her out with a Von Flue choke in round two. Granger, I don't know. You get caught in a Von Flue choke, and, it's never a good look. It looks amateurish. It's always going to look amateurish. Doesn't matter who gets caught with it. But still, It speaks to Corey McKenna's submission prowess. It's there for her. That's the first time that happened in WMMA, and that was great. Great technique, great shoulder pressure, and all whatever the hell else makes it work. That was a Darren Elkins type of performance. Not that he's ever hit a Von Flue, but he's a guy that could just smothering you dead. And great win for Corey McKenna. That was some really good Team Alpha male shit. All right, and the first fight of the night, Mayra Bueno Silva took out Stephanie Egger via armbar, or technical armbar, or technical horseshit with a sprinkle of bullshit. Look, it was clear to me that she won the fight, that there was a tap. I didn't see the tap, but I saw Stephanie Egger get up afterwards. There's no language barrier in this situation or whatever. We're all human beings. After you get up in a situation like that, your reaction is either, fuck, what'd you stop it for? Why would you stop it when I was still fighting? But anything other than that, especially, that means you tapped. So it was clear. I don't even blame Stephanie Egger. I've had those moments where I'm ashamed of my actions, but I'm sucked in by temptation and my weakness gets the better of me. She had that moment in her face and she chose weakness. She said, all right, maybe I can still continue to fight if I do the I won't be dishonorable. I just won't be honorable. So without being honorable or dishonorable, maybe I'll get my way in a dishonorable fashion. Can't blame her for it. Can't blame Mayra Bueno Silva for being upset. But great win for Mayra Bueno Silva. She got that armbar. I knew she had a chance, submitting Stephanie Egger. I just put it in my head. Egger's the better submission artist. And I still think she might even be. But Mayra Bueno Silva is a great submission artist. And she caught Egger with her own move. First round armbar. That was an example of Bueno. I do think being stronger and shorter and all that. Working on a longer, skinny arm. It was perfect. And Bueno Silva, she's already tapped out some really good submission artists inside the UFC. Egger, Jillian Robertson. She is a very underrated fighter, I want to say. And, I know she's had some tough losses, close fights and whatever, but she's one of the top fighters in the division, and this was a beautiful victory. So, again, recapping the whole event, 10 fights, 10 finishes. This was an amazing night of fights. The pacing was a little fucked up because there were gaps, with the two fights being pulled, so we had to watch some fucking senior league baseball game or whatever. It's making me fucking sick. And by the time the fights came on, they still had to spread things out. I can't tell you how many promos I saw with Thiago Santos, whatever the fuck. And Brian Ortega was given a choice 10 years ago. Whatever. But altogether, great event. Worth a rewatch. This was an action-packed event, and again, it'll go down in history. Thank you for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe. I wish I could have said all this shit more genuinely, but you could tell it's a fucking chore for me. But like, share, subscribe, please. Help me out.